Hi everyone, Gert here again. I'm in Franschhoek today at Three Streams Smokehouse, who's been supplying salmon, trout and other seafood to Woolworths for just more than 20 years. With me is Peter Stubbs and Hezron who generally runs the show over here. Guys, good afternoon. Thank you very much for taking time out of your programs today to chat to me. Peter, if I can maybe start with you, can you just give us a quick overview of your business operations and some of your seafood supply chains?
So as you mentioned, we've been lucky enough to be Woolworths suppliers for the last 20 years. We're a vertically integrated company. We produce our own fingerlings here, back there on the farm. We truck those fingerlings live in the truck over yonder and send them up to Lesotho, where we grow them to around 2 kilograms, then bring them back here and process them to supply Woolworths. We also import salmon, mackerel and various other high value seafood products that we supply to Woolworths and the food service industry nationally.
Peter, so within a global food system context, seafood is obviously one of our most sustainable food options. How important though is climate change to you, and should we be calling it a climate change emergency?
I suppose it depends on whether or not you vote Republican. If you do, then probably won't care much, but if you care about the earth and the fact that we live on a shared planet and should generally probably try to look after it, then you should care about climate change. It's a man-made phenomenon that will significantly impact everybody on the planet. It will disproportionately impact the poor, but everyone will be affected, and we need to try and keep it at net zero by 2050.
Hezron, at a country level, earlier this week we saw a number of important pledges being made regarding climate change at the Conference of the Parties in Glasgow. But to what extent is taking action against climate change just a smart business response?
Well, for us now, the first thing to understand is that it's not something that's happening in the future, it's something that's happening now. And there's things that we can do right now, which is smart business decisions, such as putting up solar panels, understanding our impact on our immediate environment and down the supply chain. And those things forces you to look at your efficiencies in your business and where you can not only save costs but also do the right thing for the planet.
Peter, you mentioned that climate change will impact all of us, but how is it going to specifically impact your operations and some of your supply chains?
Well, the most glaring and basic impact will be that we're dependent on rainfall. If we don't get enough rain here, we can't grow the fingerlings. If we don't get enough rain in Lesotho, the dam level drops and we can't farm there. Seeing strange weather phenomenon all around the world. Supply of salmon out of Norway is becoming erratic. They're dealing with algal blooms that are just unprecedented. Seasonally warm conditions in the summer, very cold winters. It's impacting supply all around the world. Similar impacts to tilapia producers in Indonesia, pangasius producers in Vietnam, and we need to address it and be flexible.
So in looking at your answer, or listening to your answer there, most of that is impacts on the supply chain. Do you think that climate change will also create opportunities for your business?
Well, I think at the very least, customers are going to demand that suppliers and retailers address climate change. So an opportunity would be to be at the forefront of that kind of change. And there are a lot of cost savings. I mean, we all know Eskom's not a particularly good energy supplier, and it's a pretty easy, quick win to stick solar panels on your roof. It pays for itself over time. You contribute towards reducing carbon footprint. So good business decision all round.
Okay, let's go have a look at that solar panels. Hezron, it is fantastic to see that you guys are in the process of putting up some solar panels, and obviously looking at renewables is one of the immediate action levers that we can pull in this thing. But what's your long-term strategy in addressing the risks from climate change?
Well, what we are in the process of doing now is just to assess our own organization and doing a carbon footprint analysis just on Three Streams Smokehouse and understanding where we have direct control on our Scope 1 emissions, and then looking at Scope 2 and Scope 3 as well, and therefore working with our suppliers on how we're getting our product to the factory, and then working with what are the potential savings and efficiencies that we can take advantage of going forward.
And obviously, listening to you, I think a good relationship with your raw material suppliers is very important.
It is, yeah. So some of our suppliers, like Salmar in Norway, that supplies us our salmon, they quite far ahead in these things. They report on all their emissions throughout their supply chains as well. So it's great that we are partnering with those companies.
Peter, obviously one of the long-term objectives here is to get to net zero emissions. How far are we off from carbon neutral seafood?
Carbon neutral seafood in totality is going to take a good 10-20 years, but we're hoping that in the next 3 to 5 years we're able to offer carbon neutral specific products. Once we're done with Three Stream Smokehouse, we're going to start doing assessments of the rest of the businesses in the value chain. So it'll be salmon and trout here, the hatchery business, as well as the farm in Lesotho, and see what steps we need to take to offset our carbon footprint there.
In looking at this sort of invention, I can see the guys up on the roof there at the moment. How likely is reducing your emissions going to affect the cost of raw materials? If you look at the salmon out of Norway, for example, is it likely to increase the price of that?
So the normal frozen containerized salmon out of Norway, it shouldn't. Product that's flown in fresh will eventually be more expensive. It has a huge carbon footprint that will need to be offset and managed responsibly.
Apart from renewable energy, what are some of the other technologies that you guys have looked at that could potentially help mitigate against climate change?
Energy saving opportunities throughout the plants, using waste heat to warm water. I mean, the easiest approach is to deal with the most immediate source of emissions, and that's always going to be energy. After that, it's looking at transportation, eventually trying to use advanced biodiesel to run our trucks and our generators as opposed to standard diesel. Price of diesel is going up, so it makes it a bit easier. And then offsets will play an important role in the future. We're going to have to support projects that offset carbon production elsewhere and either support them directly or buy offsets from them. It's just important to make sure that you look for good quality offsets and that you invest in projects that actually make a difference.
So in looking at all of this, what sort of support would you like to see from Woolworths?
It would be great if Woolworths set up a multidisciplinary team focused on climate change and setting firm targets and commitments that are then required from suppliers as well to meet a stated goal.
Well, Peter, the good news is that we are doing exactly that, and we're also going to look at a number of other initiatives. I would like to thank you guys for doing the interview with us today. I would like to commend you on the actions that you are taking here, and hope to visit again and to see this all covered. Thank you very much.